Everyone assumes that to buy a capable IFR four-seat airplane, you need at least $200,000, usually much more. But they're wrong. If you're willing to look past the planes everyone else is looking for, there are airplanes under $100,000 that deliver real IFR cross-country capability, real payload, and real value. This list will give you some ideas of how you can achieve your dream of owning an IFR cross-country machine without breaking the bank. These are sleeper airplanes that you can get on the cheap because everyone else isn't trying to buy them. They don't get talked about much. They don't show up in glossy marketing. But in the real world, they punch way above their price. For each airplane, I'll cover the best years for value, realistic price ranges, how they actually fly, and what they really cost per hour to operate. And at the end of each airplane, I'll summarize everything in a table. Let's start with one of the biggest sleepers in general aviation. The Piper Comanche 250 or 260 is one of the most underrated four-seat airplanes ever built. These airplanes are efficient, fast for the horsepower, and far more refined than most Pipers of the same era. They don't get much attention because Piper stopped building them decades ago, but that's exactly why they're such good value today. Best value years for the Comanche are generally from 1960 to 1967. Realistic prices today range from about $70,000 to $100,000, depending on engine time, avionics, and overall condition. In the air, the Comanche feels solid and efficient. It's smoother than a Cherokee and more connected than many airplanes in this class. Landing speeds are reasonable, and it rewards good technique without being intimidating. Here's what the Comanche looks like on paper. Max cruise speed is typically 155 to 165 knots. Fuel burn runs about 10 to 12 gallons per hour. Landing speed is around 65 to 70 knots. Handling is stable, efficient, and precise. Operating cost is roughly $130 to $160 per hour, including fuel and maintenance. Typical range at 75% power is 700 to 900 nautical miles. Fun fact: Piper didn't stop building the Comanche because demand disappeared. Production ended after the 1972 Lock Haven flood destroyed airframes, parts, and tooling, and Piper chose not to rebuild the line. Another fun fact: in 1959, famous ferry pilot Max Conrad flew a Comanche 250 nonstop from Casablanca to Los Angeles, a long-distance record flight after cramming extra fuel where the seats used to be. Next up is the Beechcraft Sierra. Think of this as Beechcraft quality without bonanza pricing. The Sierra gives you excellent build quality, a comfortable cabin, and smooth handling, but because it doesn't carry the bonanza name, prices stay much lower. Best value years are generally from 1974 through 1983. Realistic prices range from about $60,000 to $95,000. In flight, the Sierra feels heavier than a Cherokee, but more refined. Landings are predictable, visibility is excellent, and the airplane feels solid in turbulence. Typical numbers look like this. Max cruise speed around 140 to 145 knots. Fuel burn about 11 to 13 gallons per hour. Landing speed around 65 knots. Handling is smooth, stable, and forgiving. Operating cost runs about $140 to $170 per hour. Typical range at 75% power is 650 to 750 nautical miles. Fun fact: the Sierra wasn't just another model, it was intentionally positioned as the top step of Beech's Musketeer marketing ladder. Sport to Sundowner to Sierra, designed to move pilots up into a complex airplane for training and cross-country. The Cessna 210, especially early normally aspirated models, is one of the most misunderstood value airplanes under $100,000. Yes, it has retractable gear, and that scares people away. But capability-wise, very few airplanes under this price can touch it. Best value years are early straight-tail models from roughly 1960 to 1966. Clean examples trade between $80,000 and $100,000. In the air, it flies like a big 182. Very stable, excellent payload, heavier control feel. It's not sporty, but it's incredibly capable. Typical performance looks like this. Max cruise speed around 155 to 160 knots. Fuel burn about 13 to 15 gallons per hour. landing speed around 70 knots. Handling is stable and truck-like. Operating cost is roughly $170 to $200 per hour. Range is about 750 to 900 nautical miles. Fun fact, the 210 was Cessna's first retractable gear single, and the earliest versions were basically a 182 with retracts plus a new wing and swept tail. Another fun fact, in the early 1960s redesign, Cessna extended the 210's semi-Fowler flaps, specifically to help lower landing speeds compared to earlier versions, allowing much slower landing speeds than you'd expect. The Grumman Tiger is a classic sleeper. These airplanes are simple, efficient, and incredibly fun to fly. The bonded aluminum construction scares some buyers, which keeps prices down, but owners love them. Best value years are typically 1975 to 1979. Prices usually range from $60,000 to $90,000. In flight, the Tiger feels light and responsive. It handles more like a sports car than a truck. Landing speeds are low, visibility is excellent, and it's a joy to hand fly. Typical numbers. Max cruise speed around 135 to 140 knots. Fuel burn about 8 to 9 gallons per hour. Landing speed around 60 knots. Handling is light and sporty. Operating cost is about $110 to $140 per hour. Range is shorter than some of the other planes, 500 to 700 nautical miles due to the smaller fuel tanks. Fun fact, when the Tiger launched, demand was so hot that a Grumman official said, "Every last serial number is spoken for." Basically a sold-out first run. The Piper Dakota is another underrated four-seat workhorse. It doesn't get much attention, but it has a big engine, good useful load, and honest flying characteristics. Best value years are roughly 1979 to 1988. Prices generally range from $70,000 to $95,000. It's slower than a Bonanza, but it hauls people and bags comfortably and handles short fields well. Typical specs. Max cruise, speed around 130 to 135 knots. Fuel burn about 11 to 13 gallons per hour. Landing speed around 63 knots. Handling is stable and predictable. Operating cost runs about $140 to $170 per hour. Range is typical for planes on this list at 600 to 700 nautical miles. Fun fact, the Dakota was introduced in 1979 as the successor to the Cherokee Pathfinder concept, essentially Piper's move to give the PA-28 line a more serious, big-engine, real-load, four-seat variant. The Rockwell Commander 112 or 114 is one of the best cabin comfort bargains in aviation. These airplanes have wide seats, excellent visibility, and a very comfortable ride. Best value years for the 112 are roughly 1973 to 1978, and for the 114 from 1978 to 1982. Prices range from about $60,000 to $95,000. They're not speed machines, but they're very pleasant cross-country airplanes. Typical numbers. Max cruise speed around 135 to 145 knots. Fuel burn about 11 to 13 gallons per hour. Landing speed around 65 knots. Handling is stable and heavier feeling. Operating cost is about $140 to $170 per hour. Range is 650 to 750 nautical miles. Fun fact, the Commander's cabin was unusually big for the class, about 47 inches wide. One reason it feels bonanza roomy inside, even when the speed numbers aren't flashy. The Socata TB10 is a sleeper almost nobody in the US talks about. These European airplanes are solid, comfortable, and well-balanced. Best value years are roughly 1985 to 1995. Prices usually fall between $70,000 and $100,000. They feel more modern than many American peers and make excellent traveling airplanes. Typical performance, max cruise speed around 135 to 155 knots. Fuel burn about 9 to 12 gallons per hour. Landing speed around 60 to 65 knots. Handling is smooth and precise. Operating cost runs about $130 to $160 per hour. Range is comparable for the TB10 at 650 to 750 nautical miles. Fun fact, Socata airplanes were designed to meet strict European training and touring standards, which is why their cockpits feel so ergonomic. The Cessna 177. Cardinal is one of the most misunderstood sleeper airplanes under $100,000. At first glance, it looks like a 172, but it flies very differently. The best value years for the Cardinal are the later 177B models from 1969 to 1971, which fixed most of the early handling and performance issues. Realistic prices today range from about $60,000 to $95,000, depending on engine time and avionics. In the air, the Cardinal feels lighter and more responsive than a 172. The strutless wing dramatically improves visibility, and the airplane feels more modern in pitch and roll. It's still forgiving, but noticeably less truck-like than many other Cessnas. Here's what the Cardinal looks like on paper. Max cruise speed is typically 135 to 140 knots. Fuel burn runs about 8.5 to 10 gallons per hour. Landing speed is around 60 to 63 knots. Handling is light, responsive, and stable. Operating cost is roughly $110 to $140 per hour. Realistic range is about 600 to 750 nautical miles. Fun fact: the Cardinal was Cessna's first strutless high-wing single, and early handling complaints were so strong that Cessna redesigned the wing and tail, which is why the 177B is the version most owners actively seek out today. Now let's talk about experimentals, but specific four-seat airplanes that make sense for most pilots. The Van's RV-10 is one of the most capable four-seat experimentals ever built. It has fixed tricycle gear, excellent cruise speed, modern avionics, and light, responsive handling. Older or simpler builds can sometimes be found near the $100,000 range. Typical performance looks like this. Max cruise speed around 165 to 175 knots. Fuel burn about 11 to 13 gallons per hour. Landing speed around 60 knots. Handling is light and responsive. Operating cost is roughly $100 to $130 per hour. Range can be 800 to 1,000 nautical miles with extended fuel tanks. Fun fact: the RV-10 was the first four-seat aircraft in the RV series. First flight May 29, 2003, and by November 2022, over 1,010 had been completed and flown. Before wrapping up, there's an important point about the experimental airplanes on this list. For the same money, experimentals often deliver dramatically more capability than certified airplanes. At the same price point, a certified airplane might cruise at 135 to 150 knots, burn 11 to 13 gallons per hour, and have older systems. An experimental at the same price might cruise at 165 to 175 knots, burn similar fuel, and have a fully modern glass panel. On paper, the difference is significant. But there's a trade-off. With experimentals, it's critical to know who built it and who maintained it. A pre-buy inspection is absolutely critical. It needs to be done by an A&P who is experienced with experimental aircraft, ideally someone familiar with that specific model. A generic pre-buy is not enough. If you do the homework, experimentals can deliver incredible capability per dollar. If you don't, they can become very expensive lessons, or worse. Certified airplanes can provide increased predictability, while experimentals can provide increased capability per dollar. Both can be great choices, as long as you understand what you're buying. Out of all of these airplanes, if I were looking for a plane in this market, I would likely go with the Van's RV-10. I own an experimental already, so I'm familiar with the increased due diligence and work required with an experimental, and I really like the top-end cruise speed over other options. Which is your favorite plane out of these choices? Put it in the comments below. If you want more real-world aircraft analysis like this, subscribe to Plane IQ, real pilots providing videos about the aviation fact we like to geek out over.